Will do. So these compliance matters that are here for your consideration today relate to reports from several localities of issues surrounding the 2024 general election and the proper carrying out of duties by general registrars and electoral boards. The department sent requests to officials from 4 localities requesting them to be present today, either in person or virtually. Additionally, Elect sent requests for information from relevant officials that are in these localities with knowledge of the events in question. The 4 localities that are involved today are the city of Norfolk, in particular the vice chair. There were complaints related to conduct in dealing with the electoral board and the other members of the electoral board and the general registrar. These related to interference with work of officers of election, political activity, problems with the delays in the provisional process, FOIA violations, and those were set forth in the materials that you received. The next locality is the city of Franklin, in particular the general registrar. There was a petition that was received by the state board from the electoral board for all members of the electoral board for the city of Franklin, requesting the removal of the general registrar, in particular for neglect of duties. This Elect had some involvement with this as well, as Elect sent a staff member to help administer the 2024 election in the city of Franklin. The next locality is the city of Waynesboro, and this involves at the time, the chair and the vice chair of the board. And there were complaints related to improprieties in carrying out duties in the canvass and on election day, including improper unsealing of unused ballots, failure to appear or unwillingness to appear for meetings to conduct business, and issues related to the certification. And then finally, the city of Radford Electoral Board is here as well. There were procedural irregularities that the board members were involved with in relation to the adjudication of the provisional ballot process. So we asked for comment from the general registrar and asked for them to be here as well. Each official who is the subject of complaints today and was asked to appear was provided the same materials that you all have been provided, so that that they know what you're considering. Additionally, we've provided everything to you all that we have received to this point in terms of responses from the officials. And they were also informed that they would have the opportunity to speak today, and that the board may potentially ask questions for them or any of the other officials that are present. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back over to you, unless you all have any questions for me at this time.
I think you've explained it. Don't go far. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to hear from each of these localities, both sides, and then we're going to take a short closed session for us to discuss this, and we'll come back out of closed session and move forward from there. So who's first? City of Norfolk? All right. Is Mary Ann McKay here? Come on.
Good afternoon. I had computer problems and I wanted to get y'all files or exhibits. I believe that you were mailed my statement, and in the statement it refers to a lot of exhibits, so I have a folder for each person. Oh my goodness, okay. In terms of the issue with me wanting to or having doubts about the certification, it also relates to processing of the provisional ballots. It has to do with reports and what I also witnessed at the Chesterfield precinct in Norfolk. We had 600 provisional ballots there, but we had reports that the students, it was mostly students from the college, weren't having their IDs checked, and also that election officers were told the students not to seal the provisional ballot envelopes. And when I went out to the precinct that day, it wasn't until 3:30, I witnessed that myself. I can't say I witnessed the not sealing the officers telling them not to seal the provisional ballot envelopes. But there was a couple of people that were going to turn them in, and I said, "Oh no, you got to seal it first." And I did at that time institute a change of setting it up where the officers did start checking the IDs and following procedures. I wanted the electoral board to be more involved in the process just because I wanted to verify and get more information, because what happened, I didn't want to happen in future elections. It needs to be identified and corrected. And I do think it came down to staffing and training issues. The chief should have known or how to handle a large volume coming in. And then in terms of staffing, having more staffing. In terms of the training issue, the incident, that was a poll watcher conflict with the assistant chief. And I did not want to report on that until I had it in writing from the poll watcher. But as soon as I got it in writing, I presented it to the board and we addressed the issue. Also, in terms of the training, the protect the vote that they said that I did in the election integrity committee, I did not do. And I actually included in there what the training is that I did. And the whole purpose of that is so that they know the rules and both people know the rules, so it doesn't create a conflict. In regards to FOIA, most of my emails were with the general registrar, Ms. Isles. She's not a board member, so that shouldn't be a problem with FOIA. And then if a board member made a comment, I did copy them so they were aware, but then I stopped. And to avoid that in the future, I've just decided if I have questions or want clarification from the general registrar, I will just email her directly. When I ask for meetings, there was a couple of times that I've asked for a meeting that wasn't scheduled because of concerns that I had coming up. I would give them the reason that I'm asking for a meeting. One of them was actually what had happened at the Chesterfield precinct. That is important because there was one election in Norfolk that was in a recount. It was a difference of 92 votes, and Chesterfield precinct was in that particular district. And in terms of FOIA violations, I was very concerned because when we did have the meeting, they moved to go in closed session when it was just going to be reports from the two authorized representatives, and the candidate and his attorney were there. That was a matter of public interest that was being covered in closed session, and I just didn't think that that was right. And in terms of, let's see. In terms of me not following how the board votes, that's not true. There is one motion that I voted against, and my concern was not that we delegated the task to the general registrar. She does a very good job in so many of the things. My concern was there was no provision for what oversight looked like. So it wasn't a matter of just delegating the task. It was, I was starting to see we're delegating responsibility, and I just don't feel like the board can do that or should do that. Otherwise, why have a board? And there was two examples when I have disagreed. I'm going to give you those two. One was when we went into closed session. The time we went to the closed session, I voted against it, but we went into closed session. So I went along with that. And then the other time was I wanted us to review the precinct assignments for this past election. So I made a motion at Mr. Ziegenfuss's recommendation. Mary Ann, do you want to go ahead and make a motion and go in closed session? And I said, yes. So I did, but neither of the other two board members seconded the motion. So we didn't review any of the assignments, and I accepted that because it's a majority vote.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Questions at this point? Yeah, Matthew?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to, just be clear. I think, just a reminder, what we're doing is we're reviewing petitions to remove an officer or electoral board member or registrar. We're not actually making decisions to remove anyone today.
Thank you.
That would be handled at a local court. So just reminding everyone.
So these are going to be responses to these petitions which have been requested for us to move this along through the system for a court to make the decision.
Okay.
So thank you. That's helpful.
Were there any other questions? No. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have folks from Norfolk who wish to respond. Come right on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Neesmith. I have been a resident of the Tidewater area for 30 years, the last 8 years in the city of Norfolk. I met Ms. McKay during a training session for poll watchers held in Norfolk, Virginia. I previously had served as an election official. I found Mrs. McKay's training to be more in-depth and organized than my previous training. Mrs. McKay answered questions we may have had at training and offered support to any officer of the election or poll watchers serving for the election held on November 5th, 2024. Her knowledge of state codes and regulations and the professionalism she used during training ensured me that I would have the tools I would need on November 5th. On November 5th, 2024, I reached out to Mrs. McKay as I had major concerns at the Chesterfield polling site in the city of Norfolk. The first issue was the chief officer of election. He informed us that only one poll watcher from each party could be on site. Mrs. McKay came to the Chesterfield precinct to show him the regulations that 2 poll watchers from each party were allowed to be present. The issue was quickly resolved. The major concern was the handling of provisional ballots. The Chesterfield district had a large influx of college students who were not registered and in need of provisional ballots. Students started arriving in large groups of 30 plus at a time. Instead of having them wait in a line, an officer of the election made the decision to open the cafeteria to allow the people with provisional ballots to vote there. Consistent checking of proper IDs did not appear to be followed by officers of elections. The precinct quickly became chaotic with students sitting next to each other, talking on their phones, and asking others how and who to vote for. It escalated to become a party-type atmosphere. Students making loud remarks such as, "We are in the money now," and $50 for every D. The students secured the "I voted" stickers, took selfies of themselves with the stickers, and even one returned to secure a sticker for a friend that couldn't be there. During this process, the students were told publicly by officers of the election not to seal their envelopes. This was repeated multiple times. Being overwhelmed with large groups at a time is understandable, but blatantly disregarding the values and regulations as they pertain to the election violates all citizens' rights to fair elections. Mrs. McKay was contacted. She arrived at approximately 3:30 to the Chesterfield precinct. My observation of Mrs. McKay was that she was observant of each part of the voting process. After much observation, Mrs. McKay was assertive in order to return the polling site from the party atmosphere. I attended the first electoral board meeting in Norfolk, Virginia after the election. I did so to share my observations of the gross conduct. It was my observations that Mrs. McCain's concerns about provisional ballots were quickly discounted by other board members at the meeting. The Board of Elections.
We're going to do lots of latitude for the principals involved. That's why I think that the other folks.
May I make one more sentence, please? The Board of Elections then turned to a closed session so that I could voice my concerns and experience at the Chesterfield polling site. Ms. Carrington questioned me in closed session. Instead of taking concerns and observations seriously, the shift turned to questioning my integrity. It gave me great pause regarding her questions. Norfolk is in desperate need of more members like Ms. McKay to serve on the electoral board. I'll finish.
Anybody else?
Good afternoon. I'm Paula Markham, a resident of Norfolk for 50 years. Chairman Bannon, esteemed members. I became involved with the election integrity this past August when I was volunteered to serve as a poll book elections officer. My personal experience with voting had always been positive, and I had always answered surveys inquiring about my perception of Virginia election integrity in the positive. This year, I decided to become involved to discover if my perception was reality. I wanted to learn more about the election process, if there were any obvious holes in the system in my area, Norfolk, and if so, what was being done to fix them. In addition to attending every online and in-person training necessary, I became certified to register voters, and I began attending Norfolk Election Board meetings beginning in September. I attended the September, November, December, and January meetings, where I was disappointed to see what appeared to me to be a stonewalling of efforts by Ms. Mary Ann McKay Kramer for parity of authorized representatives and election officers at various precincts. I witnessed wild gesticulations on the part of Ms. Carrington during Ms. Kramer's discussion and reading of the Virginia Code regarding parity and encouraging the board to take more responsibility for the oversight of the AR and OE assignments to ensure parity. I witnessed the registrar, Ms. Isles, stand up and leave the room abruptly without saying where she was going and when or if she would return. I witnessed Mr. Seigenfuss interrupt Ms. Kramer to suggest that Ms. Kramer make a motion to go into closed session if she wanted to discuss the parity of assignments. And then I witnessed no one seconding the motion so that the issue was tabled. I was later disappointed to hear from a poll watcher at one precinct who felt so threatened by an election officer, I believe also a board member, that she left. She was the only person of her party there, and so she had no other witnesses or support. This situation could have been avoided if Ms. Kramer's motion for more board oversight of authorized representatives and election officers had been passed. And I'm going to move on down. I mentioned that I attended 4 board meetings between September and January, and I'm sad to say that I witnessed other board members belittling Ms. Kramer's suggestions, making personal attacks, and in general dismissing and ignoring all of her suggestions. I'd like to say that she never responded in kind. I'd like to happily report that my experience as a poll book officer was excellent. Okay, and even though I think I was the only person there of my party, everyone there conducted themselves admirably, and I appreciated that. Lastly, I would like to say that Miss Mary Ann McKay Kramer's ideas and suggestions were always backed up by a reading of the applicable portion of the Virginia Code. Her ideas and suggestions always seemed reasonable to me and were always within, even some mandated, by Virginia Code. So I'm left perplexed as to why these minor improvements of process were met with such resistance by her fellow board members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else in support?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Clarabelle Wheeler, and I am currently the chairman of the Albemarle County Electoral Board and the Western District Virginia Electoral Board Association chairman. I am speaking only as an electoral board member and not for or representing anyone else. But I think it's important, since your board has 2 previous electoral board members, and I'm hoping that they will fill in some of the gaps on provisional ballot certification for you. But I feel it's important for you to understand the responsibilities of the electoral board regarding provisional ballots and same-day registration. As you have heard, the commissioner has told you and told many groups that we have had something around 124,000 same-day registrations, provisional ballots in Virginia for this election. I believe Norfolk had about 5,000. In Albemarle, we had 2,163, a daunting task for any board. In fact, in Fairfax, they have, and many other large communities, they have ancillary electoral boards so that the electoral board, quote, or their designated proxies can review the applications for same-day registration and provisional ballots and the provisional ballot logs. These provisional ballot logs are found on the forms warehouse for the Department of Elections. Anyone can see them. They are filled out by the officers of election in the precincts when the voter is filling out their application. They all must be done completely and accurately. It is the responsibility of the electoral boards to review all of this material, to make sure that all the blanks are filled out, that the names are legible, the addresses are, in fact, residences, not mailing addresses. You can put the mailing address on your voter registration, but your voter registration residence must be on the log. The reason for the provisional ballot must also be noted. And you will note that on the application envelope, there is a place down here that says election officers. It is the responsibility of the board members to make sure that we have taught the electoral officers how to fill out this form. It is the responsibility of the board to note that everything is correct. If the board members are not permitted to see the logs and the applications, they are strapped and unable to actually certify an election. It is my understanding that this electoral board member was indeed prevented from doing her job because she was refused access to the provisional ballot logs. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm sure your board members will fill this in a little bit. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else in support?
I am remote, and my name is Arthur Devine Jr.
We'll get,
Norfolk.
Mr. Devine, give us one moment, please.
we're going to do testimony from folks here in person first. Go ahead.
Hi there. My name is Rebecca Wynn. I'm actually the chair of the Hampton Electoral Board, and I'm also an attorney in the Hampton Roads locality. I'm speaking for myself, not on behalf of the board. I'm not familiar with all of the details, though some of the details generally that are happening. I just want to generally go on the record and say that I stand in support of the Norfolk Registrar, along with the long-standing, long-appointed board members there who have acted as regional guides to us. They're well-informed, and they have always been above board and a good trust of judgment in general.
So
Thank you.
you're speaking in support of the registrar.
In support of the registrar and the petition that's been filed and the board members that were filing them.
Okay, so the process here is we're going to take all the testimony in support of Ms. McKay, and then we'll do the other side.
Okay. Well,
But you don't have to come back.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was about to ask. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else in the audience here in support of Ms. McKay? Anybody online in support of Ms. McKay?
Yes. Yeah, in support of Ms. McKay. My name is Arthur Devine, election officer of Norfolk, Virginia. And for the record, I would like to include my statement, which was certified and also which was signed by a notary public. And I also presented this information to the Electoral Board of Norfolk in person. And to this point and to this day, I have not have had the resolution that basically could rectify the situation. And it also points to the reports from Kathy Naismith and Paula Markham about this, one of the chairman of the board of elections, instead of being reprimanded and I guess retrained, but that electoral board member was promoted to the chairman of the board. And I would like to include and send, after this session, send my statement to this board before you make your final decision. And so I basically will email that to you if necessary. It's whoever you designate for me to email that information to. So I'm ready for that. And that's basically all I have at this point, to have my statement for October 20 of 2023 included in your decision making for the board member of Norfolk.
Thank you very much. Frenchel, you can tell him where to send that. All right, anybody else supporting Ms. McKay online? All right, now we'll hear folks who were involved with the a complaint from my understanding that the General Registrar and Electoral Board Chair are prepared to speak. We'll have them come forward.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Now, initially, when I'm sorry, please forgive me. My name is Atoy Carrington, Chair of the Norfolk Electoral Board.
Thank you.
Now, initially, prior to Ms. McKay joining the board, we had met her and we thought that she was going to be a wonderful addition. Once she was appointed, it was as if, like in a scene from Mission Impossible, the mask came off and we were stunned with what we were presented with when it came to Ms. McKay. Initially, it started when yes, I'm going to say that she insulted my race of people. And this was done in the warehouse where the equipment is housed and in front of others. And please understand, I was the only Black person in the room. When she said, "Don't you think you people would be so much better off if you just spoke proper English?" And I was stunned. But I let it kind of roll off my back. Shortly, because I'm thinking maybe, just maybe, she is not aware. Shortly after that, she referred to me as a socialist. Okay, so now I know exactly what I'm dealing with. And I thought that the focus was going to be on me, but then by spring, she began to display a cruelty, a disrespect, I don't even know how to describe it, towards the registrar, basically trying to make her life as difficult as possible. And there's one particular incident that really, really stands out with me. And this is when, and I'm sorry for bringing it up, but when the registrar's mother was in the active process of dying, Miss McKay piled on the cruelty during that time. Since then, I've asked Mary Ann McKay to share information that she refused to give for months. Here again, right now, I have asked for information that she is trying desperately not to provide to all of us. She acts as if her way or no way at all. If she does not get her way, she will make it a point to make everybody and everything as miserable and difficult as possible. And this is quite frankly no way for us to be. But this is exactly what we deal with on a monthly basis. And you know what really makes me really, really sad? This past election, yes, when everybody was as busy as that we could have possibly imagined. When we were going over the provisional ballots, Mr. Ziegenfuss, one of the board members, said, let's make it a point to go on the record and thank this staff for everything that they've done, because we had so many same day, voter registrations, as did so many people. He said, let's go on the record and thank our registrar and this staff for the hard work that they've done. I said, good idea. The motion was made, seconded, and only Mr. Ziegenfuss and I voted to thank the staff for their hard work. Ms. McKay made it a point to not thank the staff. That says a lot. about Miss McKay. She literally makes it a point to, when I say she makes things as difficult as possible, she literally makes things as difficult as possible. And I've never seen anything like it in my life. Have we had our run-ins? Yes, we have. But at the same time, I look at it this way. Right is always going to prevail. And we are all in sync here. There's no way. I even have here where Miss McKay threw a drop box at one of the officers of election. Now, when she's cruel to me, I can let things roll off my back. When she's cruel to the registrar, all I can do, all Mr. Ziegenfuss can do is basically apologize for the hell, and I'm sorry, but we apologize for the difficulty that Miss McKay is constantly putting our registrar through. I now am apologizing to officers of election because they are literally complaining. When I go to make my rounds, they are complaining about how she talks down to them, how disrespected she has been. And most of these individuals that are coming to me and complaining are people of color. All I can do is apologize that they've experienced it. All I can do is apologize that our registrar catches hell constantly. We shouldn't have to constantly apologize for the way Miss McKay treats people, the way she talks to enough. Our officers of election, when they work all day long, the last thing they need is for somebody to come in there and make them feel like crap. And that is what she does. Especially people that look like me. I am sorry. Like I said, I gotta let it roll off my back. I'm tired of it. I am so tired of Johnson. We thought so much of her at first, but then she showed us who she was. And now we're begging. We are begging you on behalf of our board, on behalf of the people that work inside that office, on behalf of everybody that works on those election days for all those hours. We need help. We need help from y'all because they work too hard to be made to feel like they're inadequate. And we are begging you, help us. Because this can't go on. This can't go on.
Thank you. Ms. Isles?
Good afternoon, Chairman O'Bannon, members of the State Board. My name is Stephanie Isles. I'm the Director of Elections and General Registrar for the City of Norfolk. I've worked in elections since April 2011 as the deputy and then became the Director of Elections January 1st, 2016, when my predecessor said, I will never do another presidential election again. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. This is a bittersweet moment for me, but it is long due. I had the opportunity this morning to attend the prayer breakfast with members of the General Assembly, and I needed that prayer. So thank you for having me. This has been a very difficult time. The best way I can describe how things are in Norfolk is toxic, and that's putting it mildly. Our board meetings, which would normally be 15, 20 minutes long, are 2 to 4 hours long. They are mentally and physically exhausting. We can't even get the minutes approved from the previous meeting without some conversation, some problem coming from the vice chair. You've gotten my statement, or you should receive my statement sent to the state board. With regards to questions I see that you may have, there have been accusations, and I'm happy to address them. This has been an ongoing process. The vice chair has interfered with the elections with regards to changing our operations on election day, instructing chiefs and assistant chiefs to separately fill out statements of results. That was never discussed with the Office of Elections, never discussed with myself or the other members of the board, resulting in 2 different handwritings on Canvas. And why are there 2 different handwritings? And just building on those lovely perceptions of impropriety and accusations of impropriety and attacks against my office and my staff. She has worked with the election integrity unit to staff authorized observers at the precincts. We've received reports of problems with observers at certain precincts, predominantly those of color, where my chief officers are harassed. My officers of elections are harassed on election day. I've had officers of election who have threatened to quit, who no longer want to work and have served for years and years because of what they've experienced from authorized representatives, not the people from Northern Virginia that we normally get once every 4 years in the presidential, the men in black suits, as I like to call them, but from our local people that have been staffed on behalf of the election integrity group and our vice chair who's trained them and staffed them. I've been pulled away from my duties in trying to certify elections, to complete post-election absentee ballots, to get same-day voter registration processed and provisional numbers ready for our board in order to show her incident reports that she had to look at on a Friday when everything is due, where after 20 minutes of arguing back and forth, I was ready to call security and asked her to leave the building. I hate to have to do that. This is one of my peers that I'm working for, but this is what I'm dealing with because I have deadlines. I have requirements I have to meet for the state. With this most recent election, the chair did reflect on, the vice chair did toss one of the Dropbox bags next to an officer of election because she wasn't happy that it was placed between 2 officers who were watching it, along with a security guard at one of our early voting sites. She literally picked it up and tossed it next to the officer of election, offending him, and then chastised the chief officer. There are accusations of impropriety when it comes to race. There are also accusations when it comes to a person's sexuality. She's offended a lot of my people. And I work very hard to represent all my people. I train my people. We're a family. We might be dysfunctional sometimes, but we are a family. And we know that as an elections community. But when you have somebody in authority who's telling you different things, who's disrespecting your chiefs and only speaking to Republicans, not acknowledging Democrats, it has become politically unsavory in Norfolk. And it's high time something needs to be done about it. With regards to this November election and the provisional ballots, we did have a large number of provisional ballots. We are home to the world's largest naval base and 2 universities. We actively worked with these universities to try and get the college students registered before Election Day. We worked with them. We trained them. We did voter registration drives. We trained them on how to do third-party voter registration drive training. Okay, we work very hard with Norfolk State University and Old Dominion University. They were busing these students to the polling place on Election Day to come and vote. Now, were the authorized observers that were selected sent to Old Dominion University? No, they were sent to my HBCU location. Were the questions that came up after the election with provisional ballots and the number? There was a target on my HBCU. I take offense to that. I take offense to my moral and my staff's integrity being challenged that we did not handle provisional ballots correctly, where we work and we research to make sure, number one, they're registered, they're eligible, they're in the correct precinct before we present those findings to the board. This is the way it's been done for years. It was just done on a larger, massive scale, given the number of provisional ballots. We had the naval base actively campaigning, telling the military, you need to register, you need to vote. 3 days out from the election, we had people coming off the ships, coming to vote in our office. So we work very hard. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I hope that you can remove the cancer that we have right now in our office, because that's what it is. It's a cancer. And you need to take the scalpel and you need to cut it out, because it can't continue like this. Going into gubernatorial elections, I fear it's going to be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions? Anybody else, either in the audience or online, to speak in support of this complaint?
Is it possible for me to restate something?
I think. Ma'am,
Yes.
I don't think we have provision for further rebuttal at this point.
Very well. Thank you, sir.
All right. Anybody else want to speak on Norfolk? Okay, thanks. We'll take that under advisement. Oh, I'm sorry. That's it. Come on.
Thank you for Gordon. Yes.
Hello, I'm Mike Ziegenfuss. I'm the secretary on the board, and I'm not really prepared to speak. So I would just like to say that my name has come up a few times. So I want to respond by simply saying I support the two people that had done all the filing and all of that. I have supported Ms. McKay on a few occasions. Some things are presented kind of in a nebulous way. And unfortunately, I think those, I think if they were cleared up much more, you would see that it's really, the statements were designed to kind of fog the, what was going on. Like I said, I didn't prepare anything. I do agree that some of the activities that have gone on in our board meetings, for example, going into closed session. Well, if you're accusing a particular person, that's a personnel matter, and that's like the main reason for it. So I feel that we have done our best, and in virtually all cases, have done our best, have adhered to the law, and have done what needs to be done to run fair and legal elections.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Sir.
I just have a sense of unreadiness or understanding of what you said when you said you support. Are you saying that you're in support of the registrar, the registrar and the chair?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that that's what you meant. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And unfortunately, we only had a certain amount of time to present everything. We'd be here all day if we had
You have one
to
additional question.
go into it.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Chair. It's not a question as much as it is, I think, just a point of information. Is it also not, we had it in our working papers that the chairman of the Republican Party of Norfolk is also asking for her removal?
Yes, she has. He has. Yes, he has. John Sitka has.
Okay.
He's here too, by the way, if you want to listen to him. Although his letter is self-explanatory.
Thank you.
That's part of the record.
Yes.
All right, anybody else on Norfolk, one way or the other?
Hello?
Hello, identify yourself.
I still have not received the instructions for sending my letter, which is in support of.
Ms. Tyson will be sending that to you, sir. Rest assured.